Hey everybody, it's part 2 of Payments in Prison. Well, in part 1, we discussed how they have a closed network, a closed loop system, and how an account can be funded from the outside. Today we're going to continue the discussion and see how money in prison relates to money movement in the banking industry, at least where we can relate it. I do want to warn you though, there are a couple of questions that they're the questions that we all wonder about and that come up from whenever you see movies or you see things on TV. So I just had to ask those questions. And where I could, again, I am relating them to the banking industry, at least where possible. The conversation continues next. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Payments Professor here. And if you tuned in last week, you saw we're talking about payments in prison. We explained how, well, I didn't. My friend Josh explained how you can get money loaded onto a card and you're able to buy all kinds of things in prison. Well, in part 2, we're going to take a deeper dive in the way money works in prison. Stay tuned. Hi. Josh, welcome back.
How you doing?
I gotta say, last week we ended on there's no credit in prison. But are there any ways that people can actually purchase things that maybe you don't get at that window? You talked about the canteen window. I can go up there with my card and I get things, but we all see on TV, we hear the stories that you can get stuff that's maybe not sold through the window, illegal things. How do those illegal purchases take place?
So if you're in the dorm and say you wanted to smoke a cigarette, or say you wanted to smoke a joint, or say you wanted to do a line, there's people in prison that sell drugs. And how you get the drugs is if you were in the real world and I was in prison, I would call you on the phone and I would tell you to go to Walmart and get a green dot or a prepaid debit card, load money onto it, and then you're gonna mail it to whoever you're getting the cigarettes or the weed or the coke, to their family member. Once they get it, they'll talk to their family member. And then when you finally see him in the dorm and the money's been sent to his family, then he's gonna give you what you purchased.
Holy cow. Okay, in the banking industry, we refer to that as using third parties. Right. You have a third party that you have them go buy a preloaded card of some sort, send that card to somebody, so it's moving what we call anonymously in some way, so that then once the payment's received and what we call a confirmation is sent, then you receive your product, which, well, in this case is an illegal product. Wow. So folks, it seems like a lot of things move in prison like they do in the outside world, but in their own little way. Now, we also did talk about the canteen window and we talked about the card. And one of the questions that comes up with that is, can, my family send me as much money as I need? Like say maybe I'm doing really well. Can they give me like 10 grand a month to be able to spend to help me out?
So the limit on what you could spend when I was in there was $100 per week, which comes out to $400 per month. But you can spend more than that. So if you send me $100 and I went to the canteen window and spent the whole $100, and then I wanted to get, let's say, some more food from you because you had food in your box, I would just call my people and have them load your card with money.
Oh, okay. Now I was going to ask how okay, we see there's $100 you said a week or a $400 a month limit. Right. But I was going to ask, we hear all the time about paying for protection. Right. How do you pay for that protection? Is it having them send the money in? I call, Mom, I'm in trouble here. Can you help me out? Or I'm not going to be in a position I want to be in, and send money to so and so. So that's one way. Are there other ways?
That's the main way. The other main way would be to, when I go to the window, if I needed to pay for protection, which that never happened, I would go to the window, I would get the food that I wanted to eat, and then whatever else I had left over, or however much my protection was, then when I came back from the canteen window, whoever my protection was, I would just give them that food, and that's one way of payment. Okay. The other way of payment would be to do exactly what you said, and that's just have my people put money on the guy who's giving me protection card. So then he can go to the window with his card and get whatever it is he wanted.
Okay, now, next question I got to ask you. I talk a lot about check fraud. I talk a lot about electronic payments fraud in general. And I'm sure in prison, there's some people who have committed that fraud. But does fraud, payments fraud, actually take place in prison?
Absolutely. That's a good question. So when people are in there and they befriend somebody else in there, they will try to get their social security number or other people in their family or that they may know social security number. And they'll actually file taxes with that social security number and get that tax return check sent to one of their family members on the street.
You got to be kidding me.
Absolutely.
So even inside, they're still committing fraud on the outside.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay, one last question before we end this class, this session here. What haven't I asked you when it comes to money in prison? What would the person on the street not know when it comes to movement of money, how you use money, the way money works within the prison system?
So everything you pretty much asked, the only thing I could think that we didn't talk about was cash. So there's people that work outside the gate, and when they get visitation, their people will bring cash and drop it wherever their normal work route is when they're going outside the gate. They will then pick up that cash. They will bring it back into the prison. Whatever they bring in cash is doubled. So they can buy something with cash and it's double the amount of money than if my people were to send you money and it was on your card.
Wow, that totally changes the concept of dropping the money off at the bank, because they're just dropping it off on the route that they're making.
Right.
Okay, well, Josh, thank you so much for being on The Payments Professor. I think this has been some enlightening information. For those of you out here, if you missed episode 1, make sure you go on YouTube and you find it. This has been great information. I also want to encourage everybody, go check out Josh's YouTube channel, Doc TV. Again, he is out there trying to help and prevent people from having to go to prison by explaining all the things that he learned. We got to learn a lot from him. How do you get money loaded on a card? What are the limits that are going to be there? Is there actually credit in prison and fraud taking place in prison? Obviously it is. So what did you think? Crazy examples of using third parties, right? The use of preloaded cards to be anonymous? The way they will put money on other cards for something else? And what about that? How do you pay for protection? And then the fraud! Even prisoners in prison are not safe from payments fraud. That tells us a lot, doesn't it? And finally, they still use cash and how cash is used there. Well, I want you to know, here at The Payments Professor, we're always looking for different ways to learn about how electronic payments and money moves. And you don't want to miss out on anything as we continue to explore, well, as you can see, many different areas in the world, really the globe, of what's happening in electronic payments. So make sure you go out to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And you'll get notifications about all of our upcoming episodes. And if there's a topic or maybe a question about payments you'd like to ask or have answered, then simply message me, leave a comment, or you can email me, kevin@paymentsprofessor.com. We are here to serve and to help all of you, and we do so by creating exceptional education that is entertaining, engaging, and fun. I'll see you in a future video. Class dismissed.